My name's Caleb. I'm 20 apprenticing in healing and herbcraft under the monks of Ellenwall Abbey. It's not glamorous. Mostly I mash roots and carry buckets, but sometimes when the head monk sees I'm not totally useless, he sends me out on errands. Deliver this, brew that, ride there, drop it off, don't talk too much. That kind of thing. 2 weeks ago, I got sent to the Greythorn Estate, a large stone manor hidden just beyond the pines, about an hour's ride from the abbey. My friend Renard lives there. He's nobility, the real kind, but you wouldn't know it talking to him. We met when I was 16, and he visited the abbey with his father. We kept in touch through letters and shared stories. He liked my bluntness, I think. I liked his freedom. He'd been injured during a hunt. Something about a wild boar, a thrown spear, and bad footing. His father requested help from the abbey, and somehow I got the task of riding over with bandages, teas, and a wrapped pouch of pain root. It was just before dusk when I arrived. I hadn't been to their estate in over a year, but the path was familiar. Still smelled like wet moss and burning pine. The manor looked the same gray stone and quiet windows like it had been asleep for decades. I knocked at the side entrance, the one near the herb garden. I expected a steward or servant to open it. Instead, it was her, Lady Maris. She opened the wooden door slowly like the air was heavy. She wasn't dressed like I remembered her from Renard's family feast, not in the rich blue gowns or the tight braided crown of hair. This time she wore a simple robe, cream-colored linen that brushed her ankles. Her sleeves were rolled, and her hair was unbound, resting softly around her shoulders like it had fallen there by accident. She didn't look startled or impatient. She looked calm, like she'd known I was coming and had already decided how the evening would go. She tilted her head slightly. "Caleb," she said, her voice low. "You've grown." I nodded, suddenly very aware of how much my boots were tracking mud onto the stone step. "Renard sent word," I said. "I've brought the abbey's remedy. For his shoulder." She looked at the pouch in my hand, then back at me. "Well," she said, stepping aside, "come in. I'm alone." Those words hit a little harder than they should have. Maybe it was just the way she said them. Not suggestive, not cold, just honest, simple. She didn't owe me more explanation than that. And somehow I didn't need it. I stepped inside. The warmth of the manor wrapped around me instantly. The air smelled like burnt sage and dried lavender. There was a quietness here that was different from the abbey. Less sacred, more personal. The kind of silence that knew your name. She led me down a hallway lit with lanterns and candle niches. The walls were lined with faded tapestries and shadowed archways. I followed her without saying much, watching the soft fall of her robe, the way it caught the light with each step. We stopped at a small room near the back. She pushed the door open with a touch of her fingers, not a servant's shove, but with care, like she didn't want to wake the walls. "This used to be the old scribe room," she said, "before the west wing burned. I keep tea here now." I glanced around. There was a hearth with coals still warm, a table with folded cloths, and a bench made of worn oak. A low shelf held rows of glass jars filled with herbs labeled in a flowing hand. She motioned to the bench. "You can leave the pouch there." I did. My fingers brushed hers as I passed it over. The touch was light, almost nothing, but her hand lingered a second longer than needed. Just one. Then she turned, placed the pouch beside a jar of dried chamomile, and said without looking back, "Would you like some tea before you go? I should have said no." I was supposed to head back before nightfall, but my legs stayed put. My mouth said, "Yes." She poured from a clay pot resting on a small brazier. The scent was strong mint and something darker, maybe mullein. She handed me the cup with both hands. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm just tired," I replied. "Long ride." She took a sip of her own tea. "Or maybe you're used to silence. I forget how loud this place used to be." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. We just sat there, two people separated by age, by status, by everything, and yet somehow in that room we weren't so far apart. She set her cup down. The fire crackled behind her. "You've got the kind of presence that doesn't beg for attention," she said almost to herself. I find that rare. I blinked. I don't really know how to be anything else. That's a good thing. Silence again, the kind that settles in your chest and refuses to leave quietly. Outside, the wind was starting to howl. The sky had gone from pale gold to a thick, smoky gray. I realized I had stayed longer than I meant to. I should probably go before the storm gets worse, I said, setting my cup down. She nodded, but before I stood, she reached for my hand, gently, not to stop me, just to touch it. Her fingers traced the back of mine. I froze. I'm glad you came, she said, eyes not on my hand, but on my face. And for a moment I wasn't sure if she was talking about the herbs at all. I didn't move. Her fingers were still on mine, not gripping, not holding me back, just resting. A soft contact, like she was asking something without speaking it out loud. And I didn't know what the answer was supposed to be. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. There wasn't a smile, but there wasn't discomfort either. Just this calm stillness, like she was used to waiting and wasn't in any hurry. Then she let go. Go before the rain turns to thunder, she said softly. The roads near the forest can flood. I nodded, maybe a little too quickly. My heart was making more noise than my boots. I left the little room not sure what had just happened or if anything had. But it stayed with me, that touch. I came back 2 days later. The excuse was simple. The abbey had sent more herbs. Renard's fever had gone down, but his wound needed cleaning, and I had a jar of salve to deliver. She opened the door again. This time she was dressed more formally, a light blue robe belted at the waist, hair braided and coiled. Still no servants. Still that same cool, unreadable grace. You again, she said, stepping aside. You bring trouble or medicine, bit of both. Maybe, I joked, trying not to sound nervous. She arched one eyebrow. The smallest of smirks pulled at the corner of her mouth. I followed her in past the entrance hall and through the main corridor. I could hear Renard upstairs coughing, laughing at something with a steward. He sounded fine. I'll bring the jar to his chamber, she said. He won't want visitors today. Pride gets in the way when he's weak. I handed it over. She started to leave, but then paused at the foot of the stairs. Would you like tea? She asked. Or are you just going to ride back and let the road soak your cloak again? I don't know why I hesitated. I should have had something to do. I didn't. I've got time, I said. Back in that same little room, she poured tea again. This time, the scent was cinnamon and something floral I didn't recognize. She didn't sit across from me like last time. She sat beside me, not touching, but close enough that I felt the shift in air. We talked more this time. She asked about the abbey, the work I did. I told her about sorting dried nettles and tending to monks too proud to admit their backs hurt. She laughed at that, a low, real sound that caught me off guard. Then she asked something I wasn't expecting. Do you plan to stay there forever? I blinked. The abbey. Yes, I shrugged. I don't know. It's quiet, safe. But is it yours? She asked. I didn't have an answer. It started raining again sometime during our silence. We sat there with warm cups in our hands, watching the droplets chase down the glass panes. She spoke without looking at me. My husband used to say rain washed away secrets, she said. I think he meant it as a threat. I turned toward her. Her face was unreadable again, not cold, just distant. Was he strict? She exhaled. He was everything a lord should be. That's not always a good thing. There was something in the way she said it, not bitterness, just history. She looked at me, then directly, carefully. Her eyes were sharper in candlelight, lighter somehow. I don't mean to trap you in my story, she said. You're not, I said quickly. I just don't want to say the wrong thing. There is no wrong thing, she replied, unless it's silence. And then she reached again. Not for my hand this time, but the sleeve of my tunic where it had torn near the seam. Her fingers grazed my arm, slow and casual, but they lingered. You keep coming back, she said. That's a kind of answer, too. I couldn't speak. I didn't need to. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, the silence said everything. It should have just been a torn seam. That's all it was, really. The edge of my sleeve had frayed, and she'd noticed. Her fingers tugged gently at the loose thread like she was deciding whether to fix it or let it go. Then she looked up at me, and something shifted. "I could mend this," she said quietly. "If you want." I nodded. I don't even know why. I could have fixed it myself, but I didn't want to. She stood and moved behind me, told me not to fidget. I sat there completely still while she gathered a small needle from a wooden box in the corner. The room smelled like clove and tea leaves. She knelt beside the bench and took my arm, carefully rolling the sleeve back just enough to expose my wrist. Her fingers worked quickly, confidently tying off the thread like it was second nature. But as she leaned in, I felt her breath on my skin. And that was the moment. The stitch paused. Her hand didn't move. Neither did mine. She didn't look up. I didn't look down. But the space between us got smaller, denser. My heart wasn't just pounding. It was trying to escape my chest. I think she could feel it through her fingertips. "You're tense," she said. "I know." "Why?" "Because you're close." She finally looked up. Our eyes met. That quiet stillness was back again, but this time it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, full, pulled tight like a rope between us. "You don't need to be nervous," she said. "I'm not." It was a lie. She knew it. I knew it, but neither of us corrected it. She let go of my sleeve. Not fast, not abrupt, just slow, like her fingers didn't want to leave. Then she stood, walked over to the table, and poured more tea like nothing had happened. But it had. I left soon after. The rain had stopped by then, but my thoughts were anything but clear. I kept replaying the way her hand had rested on my arm, the way her eyes had locked with mine, soft and sharp all at once. And I hated how much I wanted to go back. Not for Renard, not for duty, for her. Yet 3 nights later, I did go back. I made up some excuse. Said I'd come to check on Renard's bandages. Said the monks had a new mixture for the pain even though they didn't. She opened the door again, this time in a darker robe, wine-colored, trimmed in silver thread. Her hair was tied back loosely like she hadn't expected company, but wasn't surprised either. "You brought more medicine?" she asked, a hint of amusement in her voice. Something like that. She stepped aside. Didn't say she was alone this time. She didn't have to. We didn't go to the little room that night. She led me to the sitting parlor, a place I'd never been invited into before. It was quiet, dimly lit by one candle on the mantel. The fire had been reduced to glowing coals. She motioned for me to sit. I did. She didn't ask what I'd come for, didn't offer tea. Just sat down on the other end of the bench and pulled a thin wool blanket across her lap. The silence settled again, heavy and familiar. "I shouldn't keep letting you in like this," she said, barely above a whisper. "I shouldn't keep showing up." And that was all we said. But something about the way she said shouldn't made it clear she didn't mean won't. We didn't touch that night. Not really. But she sat close enough for our knees to brush. Close enough that when she turned to say goodnight, our faces were closer than they had any right to be. She didn't kiss me. But she looked at me like she could. And that might have been worse. It was a week before I went back. I told myself not to. I tried to convince myself it had gone far enough, that the looks, the silence, the closeness, that it was already dangerous. But when the rain came again, like it always did, I found myself riding down the same path past the same trees with nothing in my saddlebag except a lie. This time I didn't knock. I just stood in front of the door until she opened it. She didn't ask what I was doing there. She didn't smile, didn't joke. She just stepped aside. "Come in." The house was quiet. Too quiet. No servants, no guards, no sound from Renard's room upstairs, no candles in the hallway, just the faint glow from the hearth down the corridor and the soft sound of my own boots on the stone floor. She led me back to the sitting room. Same bench, same coals in the fireplace, same air between us, charged like the pause before thunder. She didn't sit this time. She stood in front of me, her hands at her sides, eyes fixed on mine. "You keep coming back," she said, not accusing, just wondering. "So do you," I said before I even knew what I meant by it. Her head tilted slightly. To what I swallowed. To this. She took one slow step forward, then another. Then she was closer than ever, and I couldn't look away from her eyes. They weren't soft this time. They were sharp like flint before the spark. "You think I don't know what this is?" she asked. "I think you know more than I do." She gave the smallest laugh, not mocking, just tired. "Do you want me to stop?" she said. It wasn't a trick question, it wasn't seduction, it was the most honest thing I'd ever been asked. I shook my head. I don't think I could even if I wanted to. That was when she touched my face. One hand, light, careful. Fingertips along my jaw like she was memorizing the shape of it. Then she leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was quiet, intimate. The kind of kiss you don't talk about because it's not meant for anyone else to know. The kind that happens in stillness, like something that's always been waiting. Her hand moved to the back of my neck, pulling me deeper into it. And I let her. I kissed her back with every ounce of silence I'd kept since the first time she said I'm alone. We stayed there on the bench for a long time. No one said anything. There were no promises, no confessions. She rested her head against my shoulder, my arm around her waist. We breathed the same air, like it was the only thing keeping either of us grounded. Later, she pulled away and looked at me. "I don't want to hurt you," she said. "Even if I know this can't last. You're not hurting me." Not yet. Her voice broke a little on the word yet. I wanted to say something, anything, but I didn't. I just took her hand and held it until the fire burned low and our shadows disappeared into the dark. I didn't go back for a while after that night. Not because I didn't want to. I did. Every day. But because something about that kiss, about the way her hand lingered in mine, the way she looked at me afterward, it made everything feel too real. And once something becomes real, you start to wonder what you're risking. Not just your name, your soul. I kept my head down at the Abbey, said I was sick, said I needed time in the archives. But I thought about her constantly, not in feverish, greedy ways, though that came too. Mostly I remembered the way her breath had slowed against my chest, how soft her voice had gotten when she said not yet. It felt like we'd found something in each other we weren't supposed to, and neither of us knew what to do with it. When I finally went back, it was late spring. The world had started blooming again. Even the gray stones of the estate looked warmer under the sun. I didn't bring herbs this time. No excuses, just me. I found her in the garden, alone. She was trimming rosemary with small iron shears, her sleeves pushed up, hair tied back in that same loose braid. When she saw me, she didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. "You came," she said softly. I didn't know if I should. She nodded once. Neither did I. We didn't touch right away. We just walked around the edge of the garden where the stone path curled near the woods. The air smelled like lilac and smoke. I kept my hands in my cloak. She kept hers full of silence. Finally she spoke. "We're leaving," she said. My chest tightened. "We're south. Renard's been offered a post near the coast, a stronghold. It's good for him. And for you," she looked out across the trees. "I'm not sure that matters anymore." We stopped walking near the edge of the estate where the garden ended and the untamed forest began. The wind picked up, stirring her robe against her legs. I turned to her. She turned to me. She didn't cry. Neither did I. But everything in me wanted to. "I don't regret it," I said quietly. She reached out then and placed her palm flat on my chest, right where my heart beat too fast, too loud. "Neither do I," she whispered. "But we can't build anything on this. I nodded. She stepped closer. I don't want you to remember me as a woman you touched in secret, she said. I want you to remember that I looked back, that I saw you, that you weren't invisible to me. I kissed her one last time. No heat, no rush, just thanks. We didn't say goodbye when I left. That word would have been too small, too final. I rode back under a sky that didn't know what had happened. And in time, everything moved on. Now I live in a town far from Graythorn. I treat people with herbs and quiet words. I never mention her name. I don't tell anyone what happened. But sometimes when it rains, I brew the same tea she gave me that first night. I drink it from a carved wooden cup that doesn't match anything else I own. And I remember the way she opened that door, like she'd already decided to let me in.